Hello there, welcome to my review of the Rockford Files Season 5, Episode 15, The Deuce, written by Gordon T. Dawson and directed by Bernard McEvety. The episode begins with a returning Mills Watson, this time playing George Bassett, getting drunk at a bar before driving home. He's also being watched by a team of people who set him up to run over an already dead woman, in a pretty brutal scene. We then cut to his court case, where the prosecutor lays out the case that this is not his first time having been caught drunk driving.
A man with a serious drinking problem sits before you now.
And had he been jailed earlier,
a man with 4 previous 502 arrests.
The woman would still be alive.
A man with 2 previous 502 convictions.
So he's pushing for second-degree murder. It just so happens that Jim is one of the 12 angry people on the jury, and he's not happy with the potential sentence.
There's something wrong somewhere. Look, I have a nose for this kind of thing.
This is certainly a thought-provoking opening to an episode, as drunk driving had been illegal in California since 1911, but was still relatively socially acceptable at the time the episode was made. And, as we see in repeat offender Bassett's case, was rarely prosecuted to the full extent of the law, if at all. In fact, this plot eerily foreshadows what would happen in real life in 1980, when a 13-year-old girl was killed by a repeat drunk driver, that led to the girl's mother starting a campaign to toughen and strengthen the law. Of course, in this fictional case, Bassett is set up, but it's still more difficult to sympathise with him or Jim's position when he could have easily done what he's accused of. And our attitudes towards drunk driving are very different today. The episode has a heck of a tightrope to walk here. Thankfully, Jim's objections aren't based on the sentence being too harsh, but instead that the whole situation doesn't feel right to him.
She was hit from behind.
The rest of the jury make compelling arguments as to why he's wrong.
So she saw his headlights at the last minute. Turned just before he hit her.
But he maintains his reasonable doubt stance, and a mistrial is called. But Bassett is still on the hook for the crime. And so, of course, he hires Jim to clear his name. Jim makes it clear to Bassett and his wife that had the DA put manslaughter on the table, Jim would have gone along with the rest of the jury. So they make it pretty clear that he is not okay with the drunk driving, but is also willing to take the case, because someone killed that woman. Jim begins at the victim's apartment, but discovers her sister, Bonnie, there. And Bonnie knows exactly who he is.
They pointed you out to me after you hung the jury.
But he manages to convince her that there's something odd about her sister Betsy's death.
Would you happen to know anyone who would want to do this to your sister?
This change of heart is a little too easy, especially considering the awful line that Jim uses on her.
And if you tried, you'd have a very attractive smile.
And instantly makes me suspicious of her. But Jim takes it at face value, and it's enough to convince her to work with him, as they discover the damage on Betsy's car doesn't match the accident, but further suggests this was a setup. All of this occurring while they're being watched by the guys that set Bassett up. Jim drops Bonnie at the airport so she can catch her plane home. But as soon as he's gone, she leaves the terminal and meets up with the very goons who set Bassett up. While this was telegraphed from the moment Bonnie first agrees to help Jim, it's still a little out of character for him not to spot it, as he's not usually so easily swayed by a pretty face, or anyone who is so easily charmed by him. She tells the goons that Jim knows the how, but not who and why, and also where he's headed next, to Betsy's employers, Horvath and Horvath, attorneys at law, one of whom, Martin Horvath, turns out to be up to his neck in it.
Bassett is completely responsible, and if it wasn't an accidental death,
while brother Arthur seems to be honest.
I still cannot accept the fact that that maniac escaped conviction.
This is a real masterclass in writing brevity, as within a short few scenes we are told exactly who's who in this situation. Having already established who the goons are, to be shown that they are working for Martin Horvath is no great reveal, but the obvious assumption here would be that both brothers are involved. To then have Arthur give Jim information that breaks Bonnie's cover is a brilliant way to establish his innocence.
Betsy doesn't have a sister.
And it also then makes sense for him to throw Jim out when he's told who Jim really is.
I don't know what your game is, Mr. Rockford, but I'm going to report you to the DA. Now you get out of here!
It shows that Arthur seems to genuinely care about Betsy's death. As Jim leaves the attorney's office, he gets kidnapped by the goons, and eventually manages to get away from them, taking what's happened to him and everything he's learnt to Bassett's public defender. Unfortunately, while there, he's confronted by the DA who prosecuted Bassett, and he has very little time for Rockford's somewhat outlandish theory. This may all be too late, though, as Bonnie and the goons plan to kill Rockford and Bassett. While Jim manages to turn the tide on his would-be assassin, Bonnie successfully gives enough witnesses the impression that Bassett has fallen off the wagon.
He won't drink the coffee. He wants another bourbon. Double bourbon, please.
To enact her part of the plan, setting up Bassett to die in a road accident. Jim is able to extract enough information out of his goon using his unique methods to save Bassett. And we finally discover what this has all been about. Betsy found out that Martin Horvath was doing some less than legal work for a criminal gang and was silenced as a result.
Phew, nice guys.
This is a really well-written episode that could have easily treated the issue of drunk driving lightly, especially considering the time it was made. But it manages to condemn Bassett's actions without completely condemning the man. By the end, he's accepted and is dealing with his addiction, and while it clearly shouldn't have taken him this long to realise he has a problem, I would hope that it serves as a good warning to anyone watching the show. I also like that Bonnie remains an unrepentant villain for the whole episode, with absolutely no redeeming features, as it's rare to have a female character with that much agency remain villainous in the show, while Bassett, who starts out as a villain, is actually redeemed as the story goes along. It never feels like it's exploiting the issue of drunk driving just to squeeze out a good plot, nor does it ever feel preachy about the subject. And the contrast between the Horvath brothers is sketched out beautifully in just a few short scenes. For me, this is the Rockford Files doing what it does best, simultaneously delivering a fun and engaging plot with compelling characters with just the right dose of social commentary. So it's an easy 5 out of 5 for me. Thank you. Goodbye.